My husband threw me out after believing his mother's lies, saying, "The baby she's carrying is not yours. I saw her out with someone." I shouted, "It's a lie." That's when her sister Connie came up to me and started kicking me. If that wasn't enough, she grabbed a steel bar and began hitting me. I looked at my husband, and he stood behind his mother while she smirked, shouting, "I don't think it's enough. Hit her more." Someone saw me and called 911. When they arrived, they tried to contact my parents, but they said, "We don't have any daughter." That was the moment I decided to destroy everyone's lives. My name is Irene, and this is the story of how I went from being a pregnant wife to someone who lost everything and then systematically destroyed the lives of everyone who betrayed me. It was a Tuesday afternoon in March when my world collapsed. I was 4 months pregnant with our first child, and my husband Dale and I had been married for 3 years. Despite his mother, Bonnie's constant interference, I thought we were happy. I was coming home from my prenatal appointment, excited to share the ultrasound photos with Dale. The baby was healthy, growing perfectly, and I couldn't wait to see his face light up. I walked through the door, calling out his name, only to find him sitting in the living room with his mother and her sister, Connie. They stared at me with expressions I had never seen before. "Dale, what's going on?" I asked, setting down my purse and the ultrasound photos. Bonnie stood up, her face twisted with anger. "Don't you dare act innocent," she spat. "I saw you last week at the coffee shop with that man." Laughing, holding hands, looking real cozy. My heart started pounding. "What are you talking about?" I gasped. "I don't know what you think you saw, but the baby she's carrying is not yours," Bonnie said to Dale. "She's been lying to you this whole time. I saw her with someone else. I couldn't believe it." "Dale, you can't possibly believe this. It's a lie. I've never been with anyone else," I protested, stepping toward him. "You know me better than this." But he just looked at me with eyes full of hurt. "My mother doesn't lie," he said, his voice cold. At that moment, Connie, Bonnie's sister, lunged at me, kicking me in the stomach and legs. I doubled over, trying to protect my belly. "Connie, no," I gasped, but she didn't listen. Then she grabbed a steel bar that Dale had left by the door from a home improvement project and started hitting me with it. The first blow caught me across the back, and I collapsed onto the floor, curling into a ball to protect my baby. I looked up at Dale through my tears, expecting him to stop this madness and protect me. But instead he stood behind his mother, smirking down at me. What he said next will haunt me forever. "I don't think it's enough. Hit her more." I genuinely thought they were going to kill me. I was bleeding and my vision was fading. All I could think about was my baby. Then I heard a voice shouting from outside, "Hey, what the hell is going on in there? I'm calling the police." It was Mrs. Henderson, our elderly neighbor. Someone saw me and called 911. The sirens grew louder, and within minutes, paramedics arrived. I was barely conscious, but the police managed to arrest Connie for assault with a deadly weapon. Bonnie was charged as an accessory, while Gail wasn't charged, but I made sure he knew his nightmare was just beginning. While I was still in the hospital, I called my lawyer, Lucy Campbell, a family law attorney known for being ruthless. When I told her what happened, she was appalled and immediately agreed to take my case. "Irene, what they did to you is unforgivable," she said. "We're going to make them pay for this in every way possible." The first lawsuit was against Connie for assault and battery. The evidence was overwhelming: police reports, hospital records, and witness testimony from Mrs. Henderson, who had heard my screams. We sued her for medical expenses, pain and suffering, and emotional distress. The amount, $500,000. Lucy worked tirelessly, gathering evidence, interviewing witnesses, and documenting every detail. Connie's deposition was a disaster. She tried to claim self-defense, but when Lucy pressed her, she contradicted herself over and over. "So, you're telling me," Lucy said, "that my client, who is 6 months pregnant, somehow posed such a threat to a healthy 45-year-old woman and her 62-year-old sister that you felt justified in beating her with a steel bar?" The jury, composed mostly of parents and grandparents, looked physically ill when they saw the photographs of my injuries. Connie came across as cold, unapologetic, and completely detached. When Lucy asked if she regretted her actions, Connie said, "I was defending my sister. I'd do it again." The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before returning a verdict in my favor. Connie was ordered to pay the full amount we had requested. She broke down in tears when the judgment was read. But that wasn't the end for me. I wanted to make sure Connie truly understood the consequences of her actions. I hired a private investigator named Pete Chen to dig into her life. Pete was a former police detective turned private investigator. When I met him, he assured me, "I'll find whatever there is to find." People who are capable of what she did usually have other skeletons in their closets. Pete's instincts were spot on. What he uncovered was a goldmine that destroyed Connie even further. It turns out that Connie had been embezzling money from her employer for over 2 years. She had been skimming small amounts from dormant client accounts, creating fake administrative fees, and redirecting payments into a personal account she had set up under a slightly altered version of her company's name. Pete discovered she had stolen over $80,000 using this method. This money wasn't just sitting idle. Connie had a gambling addiction that no one knew about. Every weekend, she drove to a casino 2 hours away and lost thousands of dollars in slot machines and blackjack. She was drowning in credit card debt and struggling to maintain a lifestyle she couldn't afford. It was clear, financial pressure can make people lash out. And Connie's violent attack on me was just the manifestation of a much bigger problem. Pete's findings were invaluable. I anonymously tipped off her insurance company and provided them with detailed financial records. The company's response was swift and brutal. They immediately froze Connie's access to their systems, launched an internal investigation, and contacted law enforcement. Connie was arrested at her desk one Thursday morning and led out in handcuffs right in front of all her coworkers. The local newspaper covered the story with a headline, "Insurance Secretary Arrested for Embezzlement." The article also mentioned that she was facing a civil lawsuit for assault and battery. Connie was fired on the spot. Her life began to unravel quickly, but watching her lose her material possessions wasn't enough for me. I wanted her to understand that her actions had consequences that stretched beyond just money. I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she'd done. So, I hired Pete again to dig deeper into her life, and what he found would finish her for good. Connie had been embezzling for years, and now it was time for her to face the music. The company launched a full internal investigation, and once the evidence was clear, Connie was arrested for embezzlement. The news spread like wildfire. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison. But even in prison, Connie's life didn't get any easier. Pete kept tabs on her, and word around the prison was that Connie struggled to adapt. She had several altercations with other inmates who didn't appreciate her entitled attitude. Her time behind bars wasn't easy, and she served 2.5 years before being released for good behavior. When she came out, she was a different person, but not in a good way. Her house had been sold to pay off legal fees and restitution, and her children, Stephen and Michelle, had completely cut ties with her. Both had distanced themselves from Connie years ago because of her violent tendencies, but when they learned the full truth about what she had done to me, they wanted nothing to do with her. I reached out to both Stephen and Michelle through social media. I wasn't trying to destroy their lives, but I wanted them to know the full extent of what their mother had done. I sent them court records, photos of my injuries, and medical reports that detailed how her attack had almost killed both me and my unborn child. Stephen responded immediately. He was appalled. "I've been afraid she would hurt someone for years," he wrote. "My wife and I don't let her around our children because of incidents like this." Michelle's response was different, though equally telling. She wasn't surprised by her mother's actions, but she was angry about the embarrassment it had caused her. She worked as a teacher and was concerned that her mother's criminal record might affect her career. After learning the truth, both children completely cut ties with Connie. They never visited her in prison. And when she was sentenced, neither attended the hearing. It was as if Connie had been erased from their lives. Her prison time was a bitter pill to swallow, and even though she was released after 2.5 years, the world she returned to was nothing like the one she had left. Her friends had abandoned her, her career was over, and her family was gone. Connie ended up in a halfway house, working minimum wage jobs just to scrape by. The woman who had once felt entitled to harm a pregnant woman with a steel bar was now powerless, isolated, and broken. But this wasn't enough. After Connie's life had fallen apart, I set my sights on Bonnie, my mother-in-law. The charges against her for being an accessory to assault resulted in probation and community service, but I wasn't relying on the criminal justice system alone. I sued her for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and conspiracy to commit assault. During the discovery process, my lawyer subpoenaed Bonnie's phone records, social media accounts, and bank statements. The evidence revealed something shocking. Bonnie had been planning the attack for months. She had hired someone to create fake photos of me with another man. She had even followed me and taken pictures to use against me. The man in the fake photos was Bonnie's nephew, Marcus. He had been paid to pose for pictures that were digitally manipulated to look like we were having an affair. But Marcus, feeling guilty about what had happened, came forward with the truth. He provided us with text messages where Bonnie had outlined her plan to destroy my marriage. With this damning evidence, we were able to prove that Bonnie had orchestrated everything to ruin my life. The jury awarded me $750,000 in damages, an amount that forced Bonnie to sell her house and move in with distant relatives. She lost her home, her wealth, and her sense of security. But I wasn't done with Bonnie just yet. Using the evidence from the lawsuit, I filed a complaint with her employer. Bonnie had worked as a supervisor at a local government office for 15 years, and I made sure her job was on the line. The company, not wanting to be associated with her after such a public scandal, terminated her employment. At 62 years old, Bonnie was left unemployed, broke, and completely dependent on others for the first time in her life. Now, for Dale, the man who promised to love and protect me, who stood by and encouraged his family to beat his pregnant wife, his betrayal cut the deepest. I had trusted him completely. We had shared dreams, planned a future, and I had believed he would always have my back. But discovering that he was capable of such cruelty required a special kind of revenge. The divorce proceedings were brutal. With Lucy's help, I made sure they were as public and humiliating as possible. I didn't just want to end our marriage. I wanted to ensure that Dale paid for what he had done. We filed for divorce, and I made sure the court knew about everything he had done. Lucy was relentless. We have a man who not only believed outrageous lies about his wife without any investigation, but who actively encouraged violence against his pregnant wife and unborn child, she said during one of our hearings. The DNA test results were another blow to Dale. He initially resisted the test, probably hoping to maintain some plausible deniability about the baby's parentage. But Lucy made it clear that his cooperation would reflect better on him during the proceedings. The results were unequivocal. The test showed a 99.99% probability that Dale was the father of our child. When those results were read aloud in court, Dale visibly slumped in his chair. His own mother had convinced him to abandon his wife and unborn child based on complete lies, and now everyone in that courtroom knew it. In our state, marital misconduct is considered during divorce proceedings, and Dale's actions qualified as extreme cruelty. I was awarded the house, his car, 60% of our assets, and substantial alimony. He was also ordered to pay child support for our daughter, Emma, who was born healthy 5 months after the attack. But the financial settlement was just the beginning of Dale's problems. I knew that Dale, who had built his life around his reputation, would be devastated by the damage to his career. He worked as an engineer at Hoffman Engineering, a prestigious firm specializing in commercial construction projects. Dale had been with the company for 7 years and was being considered for a partnership track. His colleagues respected him, and his boss had often praised his technical skills and professionalism. I decided to target his career. I reached out to a local investigative journalist named Amanda Foster. She had a reputation for covering social justice issues and had written extensively about domestic violence in our community. "I have a story you might be interested in," I told her during our initial phone conversation. "It's about a local engineer who encouraged his family to assault his pregnant wife, and how the system failed to protect a victim of domestic violence." Amanda was immediately interested. Domestic violence stories, especially ones involving professional men who appeared respectable on the surface, were exactly the type of journalism she specialized in. We met for coffee, and I provided her with copies of police reports, court documents, medical records, and photographs of my injuries. "This is horrific," Amanda said after reviewing the documents. "You're telling me he actually told them to hit you more?" "That's exactly what happened," I confirmed, "and there's more. His mother fabricated evidence of an affair, hired someone to create fake photos, and orchestrated this entire attack to destroy our marriage." Dale never questioned any of it. Amanda spent 2 weeks investigating the story. She interviewed witnesses, reviewed court documents, and attempted to get comments from Dale and his family. None of them would speak to her, which only made them look more guilty. The article was published on a Sunday morning with the headline, "Local Engineer Encouraged Family to Beat Pregnant Wife." It was featured prominently on the newspaper's website and included several photographs. A professional headshot of Dale from his company's website, a photo of Hoffman Engineering's office building, and carefully cropped images of my injuries. The story went viral on local social media within hours. Dale's colleagues, friends, and professional contacts were all sharing and commenting on the article. The response was overwhelmingly negative, with people expressing shock that someone they had considered respectable could do such a thing. Hoffman Engineering was quick to respond. They prided themselves on being a family-friendly company with strong values, and having one of their engineers publicly associated with domestic violence was a PR nightmare. Dale was called into a meeting with HR on Monday morning and placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. They claimed this was standard procedure, but everyone knew what it really meant. During the internal investigation, I made sure that additional damaging information found its way to Dale's employer. Through Pete, my private investigator, I discovered that Dale had been using company resources for personal projects. He had been using the company's 3D printer and CAD software to create items he was selling online. While not technically illegal, it violated company policy, and this gave Hoffman Engineering further grounds for termination. The investigation, aided by strategically leaked information from court documents and tips about Dale's policy violations, resulted in Dale being terminated for conduct unbecoming of a professional. The termination letter, which I obtained through a contact at the company, cited both the domestic violence incident and the misuse of company resources. It also noted that Dale's continued employment was inconsistent with the company's values and commitment to family safety. Dale tried to fight the termination, hiring an employment lawyer and claiming he was being discriminated against. But the evidence against him was overwhelming, and his lawyer eventually advised him to accept a small severance package in exchange for agreeing not to pursue further legal action. The engineering community in our region began to view Dale with suspicion and distrust. Word spread quickly, and many firms were hesitant to hire someone with his history. Dale found his options severely limited. He was eventually forced to take a job as a maintenance worker at a factory, earning a fraction of his previous salary. His professional destruction was complete. But that wasn't all. Dale had built his entire identity around being liked and respected, and I was going to make sure he had to live with the consequences of his actions. I systematically reached out to his close friends, family members, and acquaintances to ensure they all knew the truth about what had happened. I created a detailed social media post, complete with photos of my injuries, hospital records, and court documents. The post went viral in our local community, and Dale became a pariah. His friends saw him as reliable, funny, and trustworthy, until the truth came out. One by one, his friends began distancing themselves. His college roommate, Jason, was the first to express his shock and disgust. "I had no idea Dale could do something like this," he said. Within a week, Jason shared the information with the entire group. Dale's once popular social circle quickly abandoned him. Even Dale's work friends were horrified. Brent Williams, one of his closest colleagues, publicly stated, "The thought that someone I trusted could stand by while his pregnant wife was beaten makes me physically ill." Dale's extended family was equally disgusted. His uncle, Thomas, called me to apologize on behalf of the family. "What Dale did is unforgivable," he said. Dale's reputation, social standing, and career were completely destroyed. Everywhere he went, people recognized him from the news. His friends abandoned him, his colleagues turned their backs, and his social circle shrank until it was almost non-existent. The isolation was complete and devastating. Dale had built his life on being liked, but now everyone knew the truth. He had traded a loving wife, a beautiful daughter, a successful career, and a good reputation for cowardice and cruelty. But for me, the satisfaction came in knowing that I had forced him to live with the consequences of his actions every single day. His professional life was in ruins. His personal life was in shambles. Every time someone Googled his name, they would find the articles about what he had done. And that knowledge was all the revenge I needed.